Hello, I'm Joshua. I'm a 29-year-old artist, academic, and trauma survivor, and I'm asking for your help to rebuild my life after a lifetime of abuse and betrayal. Now, if you see me looking there, it's because I have a 2,500 word script. And I want to read everything because there's a lot to go through. Okay. So, I am asking for 1,500 pounds, English pounds, to restart my life. I have my GoFundMe in my description. And I'm not someone who likes to ask for help from other people, but my situation has become very desperate at this point. To understand how I've gotten to this point where I am now, you need to understand my background. I grew up in a very abusive Christian home, very extremist Christian home, where I was sexually abused by both my parents as well as by other people. Because of my sexuality. My mother came to the conclusion at age 6 that I might be gay. So from the age of 7, my mother would find any excuse to strip me naked, tie me up, lay me on the ground, and beat me with a wire hanger and a belt buckle. She did other things as well, but I'm not sure I can talk about those things so openly here on YouTube. She was going through a lot at the time, having divorced my dad and being left alone with me, someone who reminded her of my dad. So to cope with this, I would often daydream about having a different family where I could feel loved. My teachers at school caught onto this and took note of this in school reports. When my mother would catch me daydreaming, she would tell me to stop thinking about men from age 9. Yeah, she really exposed me to thinking about men in a sexual way, even though I wasn't doing that. I was thinking of a life where I could be free and happy and away from her, you know. At the age of 7 now we're going back now to age 7, I developed a stammer, or a stutter in American English. And this made it impossible to communicate to others about my abuse, so I stayed silent and bottled things up. Eventually, it became normal to not to express myself. I was being censored in the most horrific ways. Thankfully, I trained my voice during my teens through singing techniques and breathing techniques, you know, to manage my stammer better. I now speak fluently most times. My parents would make me read anti-gay passages from the Bible in order to cure the gay within me and to turn me straight. It didn't work. In fact, I developed a porn and sex addiction which started at age 9. I developed these as a means to escape and cope with the harsh reality of what I was going through. But I didn't know at the time, and I wouldn't know for over a decade, that my habits, my addictions were a response to trauma. So I've talked about my mother, but what about my father? Where the hell was he and what was he doing besides sleeping around with women throughout my parents' on and off marriage? Well, my father, he financially abused my mother throughout their marriage. In fact, my mother found a job when I was about 10 or 11 working as a PA for her friend's property management company. When my dad found this out, he found out about the company car, and when he saw this, he told everyone in my family that my mother got this car through being a prostitute. Yeah, he really said that while they were married. 2 years after their remarriage. And when this happened, my mother quit the job. So as I got older, the abuse that was directed to my mother was soon directed to me, then my sisters. In 2011, I was kicked out of boarding school because my father didn't pay the fees because he blew up the family savings on a bad investment in West Africa. And in 2015 I started university, and my dad insisted on paying for my university accommodation. Now at this point, I didn't know what my mother had gone through. It's as if she hid all of that from me and from my sisters. We weren't privy to what my dad was doing to my mother, not until I was much older. So I agreed for my dad to pay for my accommodation. I saw nothing wrong. I saw nothing wrong with it. In fact, I thought he owed me because of not paying for my school fees when I was younger. So he did this for the next 6 years. But throughout that time, whenever it was time for him to pay my rent each month, he would start arguments with me out of nowhere in order to find reasons for him to cut me off. He loved to do this particularly at the end of each year. That's when he would pick someone in our family to start an argument with, to threaten with, if you don't do what I say, then I'll cut you off permanently, you'll get no money, and blah 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 blah. But my mother encouraged all of us to just stick with it, to just put up with his bullshit, basically. And as someone who is gay and autistic, well, more autistic than gay for this particular thing, my brain was compromised. My parents knew that I was autistic, but I didn't know until about 3 years ago. And it's as if they used my autism against me to control my thoughts, control my feelings, to try and make me think a certain way, to feel certain things about certain issues. It is what it is, I guess. But the thing is that even though he would start arguments with me and my mother encouraged me to just put up with this bullshit, I really loved studying and being immersed in my studies at university. So I tried as much as I could to block out his abuse and all the noise from my family as much as I could, by focusing on my degrees. I didn't know this at the time, but it was a coping mechanism for me. I didn't know that I was using my studies as a coping mechanism. Like, I wasn't aware that I was using porn and sex for the same thing. And throughout my studies, I started to realize that my childhood was something that I had to come to terms with. During my bachelor's, I started to read more about trauma studies, and I slowly started realizing over numerous years that that in fact my experiences were aligned with what was described in the books that I read. I started incorporating elements of these theories into my essays, and I didn't fully realize that my interest in this topic was due to my own trauma. At the same time, my mother gave birth to my half siblings, and I didn't realize how terrible this would become until some years later, when the reality of my experiences started to set in. Then I started my PhD program, and my topic of choice was hauntology, with regards to post-colonial literature. Hauntology basically means the study of haunting. So my thesis basically looked at how the events of the past influenced the present. So as I was reading and researching for my thesis, I started to question how my own past influenced me in the present. But when I would bring this up to my mother, she would often discourage me from this. She would often encourage me to dismiss these thoughts, telling me that my thoughts weren't grounded in reality because I was reading fiction books for my thesis. Do you see what's happening here? There's a theme of my parents not taking me seriously, not wanting to take me seriously. And I think this stems from the fact that they think I chose to be gay. Therefore, my thoughts and feelings are compromised. Then I realized that was a running theme throughout my life. It wasn't just something that happened once. And the reason why, at age 29, it's taken me so long to accept the thing that happened to me was because my parents kept me in a feedback loop of denial. And because I have a speech impediment, it's heightened these negative feelings of doubt and my lack of self-confidence. And on top of that, my parents knew I was on the autism spectrum, like I said before, since I was a child, and they used this against me to keep me pigeonholed in a particular way of thinking. So effectively, my thought processes were hijacked by people who should have loved and nurtured me, so I could bend to their will. It's sick and disgusting if you ask me, and it's made me question how I can ever trust anyone again. Which makes making my GoFundMe campaign even more difficult. But I need to do this because otherwise I may die. Oh God. Anyway, now I look back at my childhood and I had all the symptoms of a child with a poor developmental background, but no one seemed to question it for the most part. So I've been keeping all these feelings, all these emotions bottled in because I was raised to deny my own agency and effectively my own happiness. There's no doubt in my mind that my parents knew what they were doing to me. It was all about control. How can we control our child so he can turn out straight, right? My life was inevitably dictated by my sexuality. It became all that mattered, and that's why I turned to it through, being a sex addict and a porn addict. And as I got older, I became a food addict, an alcohol addict, an alcoholic. But thankfully, I'm not any of these things now. I'm very sober in all sorts of ways. So the day after Christmas, 5 years ago, I tried to end things, end things, right? I was in a hotel bathtub with vodka and many tablets, painkillers. As soon as I realized what I was doing, I snapped out of it and I realized that I had too much to live for. I had come so far, despite my adversity, to try and make my life better. I realized everything in my life had to change, so I quit my PhD after I realized that I was doing it to only appease my parents so they could tell people that they have a doctor as a son. And yes, I enjoyed my degree, but when I also realized that I was doing it to please my parents so they could brag about me to their friends and family members, I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to be part of their thing, It made me feel dirty, so I quit. And after I quit, I started making abstract art, and doing this brought me a lot of joy. It made me feel very happy making art. I posted my work on Instagram and I gained a lot of followers until my page was terminated for copyright infringement, wrongfully so. I played some music in the background of one of my posts and this got my account flagged. During my painting days, I decided to rent my apartment out on Airbnb. I needed money as it was very hard to live as an artist in London, and it wasn't possible for me to move from that place due to my poor credit in the UK. My dad was my guarantor. My dad used my name to take out credit cards, and also he put my name on his car, and one time I nearly went to court because of this, because he didn't pay a speeding ticket on time. He paid it very late, and because of this, the person who this fine was addressed to was me. Yeah, very abusive man. So when I rented my home on Airbnb, My aim was to accumulate as much money as I could so I could move away from the UK, disconnect from my toxic family and start life afresh. The Airbnb business went well for 3 years, and eventually I put this money into crypto, and I made some profit from it. So you had money. Where is it? Well, my mother gave birth to 3 children. Now they are about 7 or 8 years old. 8 years old and 6-year-old twin sisters. The father of the children is schizophrenic and no longer in the picture. The children are now at the age when my mother started to abuse me when my dad, he wasn't around in the house, in the home, right? And I could see how my situation at that time with my mother could mirror what my siblings could go through now. So I felt a duty to rescue those children, my half-siblings, take custody of them and raise them myself. They are the most gentle, smartest, intuitive children I know, and I love them so much. I knew if my mother raised them, they would turn out horribly like I did. But I know I needed money for lawyers and housing for the children within London. If I raised them, I went to 8 schools growing up, so I knew how disruptive one's social life could be if you move around too much as a child. So I took the profit I made from crypto and I tried to flip it into more money, but instead I lost everything. In 2 weeks, the money was gone. My savings were eliminated. I had developed a compulsive drive to protect my half-siblings, but I didn't do the same for my risk on the market. It was stupid on my part and I cried for days afterwards, but I had to move on. This happened in July last year. And just after I lost the money, my Airbnb business went down drastically. People aren't searching for Airbnbs like they used to. I had my longest bookings, which were 2 to 3 month long stays, cancel their stays, and I had a 4.5 out of 5-star rating on Airbnb. So they weren't cancelling because my apartment was getting poor reviews. I generally think it's because of the economic situation around the world. People are more willing to preserve their money these days. I went from earning £4,000 a month at the start of last year to earning only £300 at the end of last month. Instead of getting guests who would stay for multiple weeks at a time, I would receive only 2 to 3 guests a month who would stay for 3 to 4 days maximum at a time. I had to lower my rate to stay so I could have more eyes on my listing since I needed the money. My apartment was one of the most viewed on the website, Airbnb. And to add salt to injury, I did have one guest who stayed for 6 weeks between mid-January and late February. That was my longest guest this year. And he needed access to have access for the internet for his job. But the moment he entered my apartment, the Wi-Fi stopped working. It was working perfectly when my co-host was at the flat minutes before my guest checked in. Then it stopped working from then on, and until now I don't know why this happened. I reached out to the internet provider and they were slow to take action, so I thought the best thing to do was to switch to a new Wi-Fi company. The guest wanted to leave my apartment after this experience, but he searched. So he searched for another apartment in London, but he was unable to find one that was as cheap as mine for what my apartment offered. So he stayed. And 2 weeks after I cancelled the internet company, the one before, and switched to a new one, the router for the new provider finally came. I was so anxious about this guest because I could tell that he didn't like my apartment, he didn't like his experience there, and because of this, he wouldn't take care of it. I was right. When he checked out in late February, the cleaner arrived at the apartment and she smelled cigarettes. Very strong smell of cigarettes. And there were burn marks everywhere on the carpet. There was hair left everywhere on the carpet. The guest had a cat who shed a lot, even though the guest told me that that his cat did not shed at all. But apparently, the cat shed a lot of hair, and this took a lot of time to remove, and money as well. There were pots and pans everywhere in the apartment. I don't know why he left them everywhere, even in the living room. I'm not sure what he was doing, why he left them there. They were in the kitchen, on the floor, in the living room, on the floor. It's like he deliberately wanted to make the place messy. That was my worst guest I had in my 4 years of being an Airbnb host. He also caused a very bad mold infestation too in the bathroom, and all of these cleaning issues, these mold issues, cost me over £1,000 to fix. So he's the first guest I had who made me lose money rather than make money. And because of this issue, and plus I was earning less money over time, I was unable to pay for the rent in London. My landlord in London knew that I was subletting his apartment, and he let me do this. I wasn't earning enough money to pay my rent, so at the end of last month, my home was repossessed. I was evicted from my home. I didn't know that this would happen until my guest wanted to check in, and it was between the time earlier that morning when my cleaner cleaned my place and when my when my guest checked in late in the evening, that's when they changed the locks on the door. And I found out about this eviction through my co-host, because the guests, they couldn't enter the apartment with the key. So my co-host sent me a photo of my eviction notice, saying that I had been evicted. I will try and post the photo of that eviction notice now. Okay, so that happened, and I was going to use that money to pay back my my apartment owner, my landlord here in Egypt, the second half of the rent that I for this month of May, and I was unable to, and throughout April there had been issues with me paying my landlord here back on time, because of the mess that my guests would regularly leave. My co-host asked for more money from my payouts for each guest. So I had to pay him more money, since it took me a long time to find a co-host. I was on the verge of giving up at that point, and I found him. So I had to persuade him to stay, so I gave him more money from each booking. So I had to tell my landlord here in Egypt that I would have to pay him less money each time I would get my payouts from Airbnb, which I wasn't happy about, but I had no choice to. This was my only income source, and because of this, literally all of the money I made last month went to him. Nearly all of it. I only saved some for food and water and all these things, which are quite cheap here in Egypt. I think maybe that month I saved about, I kept about £30 for myself, English pounds, no, not Egyptian pounds. I kept about 30 English pounds for myself for the month, which was fine, very little, but it was okay. And so sorry, I went off on a tangent there, because I didn't include this information I just said in the script, so I had to fit that in somehow. So where were we? Okay, so yes, in April I also had to renew my visa for Egypt, but at the time I didn't know that the visa price jumped from $30 to nearly $200. I didn't know this, and I only found this out 2 weeks before my visa was due to be renewed. So I had to ask my landlord here if I could lend from him this money. And obviously I still owe him this money, as well as the money for the second half of this month's rent. Okay. I have since relied on the kindness of friends to pay for my rent in Egypt when I would fall short of paying my rent since about November of last year. But I don't want to rely on them any further because I have exhausted their help and I hate being a burden to other people. I really hate it. I hate asking for help because not everyone has the money that I need. I've tried to look for various jobs on the internet in the past few months. There's a website called researchoptions.com that pays people if they take part in market research. And I applied for a few research tests, but after the third application, they blocked the entire country from accessing the website. They blocked the entire country of Egypt due to me. I caused that to happen. The website are looking for people who are only based in the UK, not people who are British but are based in other countries, apparently. And now I have a Fiverr profile. Fiverr is a freelance website where I offer services, but I've had no jobs yet. I have a Twitter profile where I offer my services as an astrologer, and I know some of you may not believe in astrology, but since I got into it 5 years ago, it's helped me make sense of why my life is so chaotic. And I use my knowledge to help answer questions for other people, to help guide other people using their birth charts, right? And I offer my services as an astrologer, but my audience is fairly small, and I'm doing everything I can to push my profile to more people, but clients aren't clienting. They're not coming to me. I've had only one client since I started this profile about 6 months ago, and I'm very grateful for him. So I'm trying everything I can to make money on the internet with no money to start, which is difficult because you often need to pay for advertising to make money quickly on the internet, but I don't have this money right now, so I can't really do this so quickly. I'm trying to utilize my skill sets to the best of my ability, and that's why I resisted so long to make this GoFundMe. I don't like to ask for help so much because I know how unreliable people can be, like my parents, for example. I know how people how they like to use other people who are vulnerable, who may appear as weak to them. And this is why I chose to make a new GoFundMe campaign after months of trying to earn money for myself. Yeah. I like to be independent, and I like to make money on my own, but I guess there comes a time when one needs to be okay at asking for help. My landlord in Egypt he's going through a difficult time as well, because he is late to pay back his lenders because of me. He asked the reason why he could give me the money for my visa is because he asked lenders to give him this money. And due to the setbacks with Airbnb, I wasn't able to pay him back on time each time. And now it's gotten to the point where I'm no longer earning any money whatsoever, so it's just gotten worse over time for him as well as for me. And he's not very happy with me right now. And he lives upstairs. He lives right above me. My ceiling is his floor. So it's not like I can avoid him at any time. Every day I go out, I see him, and I feel so depressed because I knew that I'd let this person down, and seeing him every day reminds me. It makes me feel like a bad person to even step outside of my apartment to go out, because I run the risk of seeing him and seeing his face and talking to him and knowing that I make this person's life more difficult. It's heartbreaking, to say the least. So most times I stay at home. I don't go out very much because of this reason. And yeah. I'm not someone who likes to inconvenience other people. I treat others as I want others to treat me. I value honesty and openness, but I had to lie to my landlord, and I told him that I had found a new job and that I'd be able and I could pay him back his money that I owe him by the end of this month. Now, why lie? Why would I lie to him? You may ask. If I told him the truth and said, I don't know when I could pay you back your money that you didn't have to give me, that you gave me out of the kindness of your soul to pay for my visa, he may throw me out. And I run the risk of being sex trafficked or organ trafficked here in Egypt if I'm left on the streets. I'm in a foreign land, living in a city, Hurghada, that can be very unkind to foreigners who are perceived as vulnerable. This city is full of people who are greedy for money, who are willing to do anything for money. The reason I'm still living here is because it is cheap to do so. I cannot afford to live in most other places. I can't even afford a cheap plane ticket to leave this country, so I have to stay here for now. For instance, this month I was almost sex trafficked by another man who lives in Egypt. We started talking online, and his offer to pay for a new apartment in his city and to give me an allowance every month was tempting, but then he started asking me questions like, am I living alone? Do I have any friends here in Egypt, and though they may be simple questions, it made me feel off. I felt very strange because of these questions. And I had also heard from someone else last year, sometime in Egypt, an Egyptian, and the same thing happened to him. He was also sex trafficked, and but he escaped. And his story it's very inspiring and very long, yeah. For now, I want to take slow steps. I need to pay my rent here for this month and next month, and pay the debts I owe to my landlord as well. And that's all included in the price of the goal for my campaign. I also have to pay for water, lights, all these things, food, and I also owe some friends money as well. I owe a lot of people money. Well, I owe people a lot of money, I should say. I owe three people money. My landlord and 2 friends. And they should be paid back because I should pay them back. And I also need to find a job. So that is all included in the goal for the GoFundMe campaign. I am absolutely tired of being a victim of circumstance. It's not productive for my mental health, for my physical health, my well-being, and it's mentally exhausting for me to be beholden to the abuse of my parents and to be beholden to other people, right? I want to be independent, but it's difficult because I need the help of other people in order to become independent right now. So, okay, that's all from me. I hope you found this informative, and I'm sorry if I stammered a lot, but this is a very stressful time for me, and I can't really speak fluently when I'm in this sort of mood. Okay, thank you, and please check out my GoFundMe in the under there. Okay, bye bye.